And hello, comic book fans, and welcome back to the Comic Lyra podcast, where we comically
and literally
review comics. I'm Ryan, also known as Comic Stan. I love comic books, but my co-host loves regular books, so I make him read comic books. And this week, I made him read Fantastic Four, issue 262, The Trial of Reed Richards. Order!
Order! Order in the court!
Will all celestial beings please keep it down?
No, the court, so in...
Are you correcting me on this?
Well, I've spent a lot of time in court, haven't I?
Oh, for your crimes.
For my crimes.
Yeah.
For the sin of having a job where I used to have to go to court a lot.
Write in and guess what his crimes were, based on his voice.
But the order thing doesn't happen in court, but what you do get is a lot of, my esteemed colleague said this, or I believe my learned colleague is incorrect. I couldn't possibly have stolen those eggs.
Your Honor, I think you'll find that the esteemed Galactus is actually a part of the universal force of nature and therefore cannot...
Yeah, literally. Like, because I've sat in on some pretty serious trials as well.
Well, I don't think there's none more serious than the explosion of a planet and billions of lives, I think you'll find.
Well,
Alien
yeah.
lives, but, you know, I don't see difference between humans and aliens.
This is some Nuremberg trial shit.
This is Intergalactic Fantastic Four Nuremberg trial.
This is exactly what it is, and it's just as much of a farce as well.
This core is a farce. I'm the Watcher, and I say this is a farce. Anyway, with me as always, my aforementioned co-defendant is Jamie.
Hey, sup, people? I'm in a better mood.
Yeah, you look better, you sound better.
Yeah.
Your eyes have a twinkle in them again.
Do they?
Yeah, they were quite dead in the past episodes.
Have I got my twinkle back?
The twinkle in your eye, which is also the same reason that we will have an interrupted schedule in November.
Yeah,
we'll get to.
The child that is still but a twinkle in my... Well, no.
But a twinkle.
We have to edit that. Can you bleep out the pronoun I accidentally just used for the baby whose gender I'm not supposed to be telling people?
I can cut all this part out, to be fair.
No, that's okay. No, the baby is no longer but a twinkle in my eye.
Right now, the baby is a sensor beep. That is their pronoun right now. We don't need to get into it. We get to the comic.
Well, no, because some of the illiterates might have had this experience where they've had children. If you are an illiterate who is the partner of somebody who is pregnant, potentially with your child, the thing that you will probably have is a weekly fruit update, right? And same
with tumors. It's the two things that are measured by fruits.
It is. No, it is.
And they're not that dissimilar when you really think about it.
God, Ryan, you're really showing your opinions now.
This is the first 5 minutes of the episode.
So before we get into the comic, I've had a weekly fruit update, and then my partner turned to me today and went, "Do you want to know?"
Banana.
No, it's never banana because it's a weird shape. She was like, "Do you want to know what fruit the app is saying the baby is this week?" And I said, "Yeah." She said a fucking cinnamon roll. And I'm like, that's not a fruit.
That's an American fruit.
Yeah. Maybe,
it's got cinnamon, isn't that?
Maybe
is that a fruit?
Maybe in the Pacific Northwest, that passes where they put gummy bears in salads. But in Blighty, in the King's home, that is not a fruit, sir. That is confectionery.
At least say Cherry Bakewell.
No, because it's bigger than a Cherry Bakewell now.
But at some point, it was on the Cherry Bakewell scale.
At some point, yeah. At some point, maybe like 5 or 6 weeks ago, it would have been about the size of a Cherry Bakewell.
Let me know when it gets to shepherd's pie size.
Why did you do a bad British accent? You are British.
That's the skill. That's the amazing skill of it.
Can you introduce the comic book in that accent, please?
Oh, Christ.
Because that was like an early Simpsons British accent.
Early Simpsons British is all posh, except for that one waitress they bring out in the Union Jack who's like, "Freshen your drinks, governor!"
Yeah.
Which I do love. So, well, as I said, we are reading Fantastic Four 262, The Trial of Reed Richards. If you didn't know.
How is it already?
It's all over the map.
We are close enough to the start of the episode that we could just scrap this and start again, and it's already descended to chaos.
We've got gold.
This is gold.
Yeah.
There was the whole cinnamon bun bit.
This is why we get fan mail for.
We're getting increasing quantities of fan mail as well.
And it's because of bits like these.
It's because of the bits.
And speaking of the bits...
that's what got me into this mess.
Now let's get to the comic.
Okay.
So yeah, Trial of Reed Richards, 262. It's a single issue.
Yeah.
But I think you'll agree, pretty dense single issue.
Chewy.
Yeah, and what's especially funny is it's a courtroom drama essentially with a lot of meta twists and stuff. But normally superhero trials, and I've read a bunch of these to confirm issues that do a trial.
Yeah.
Normally what happens is the trial happens, there's a bit of back and forth, and then a supervillain busts in through the wall, and the hero, whichever position they are in the court, whether they're a witness or defendant or the judge or whatever, they sneak off in the hurry and they change into their spandex, they come back and save the day. Yeah. And then they just resume trial like an hour afterwards. They're like, just sweep up the rubble and we'll get back to it. There's no mistrial or anything. And then they win the day. This is an intergalactic philosophical debate on like forces and Galactus's role in the universe.
Yes.
There's no action.
No.
And I loved it.
It was great. It was really compelling.
Yeah, and I'm glad you like it, because I think there's so much to get into. There's stuff in here that makes for a great advertisement of this episode that I didn't realize was in it until I read it.
So, were you expecting me to like it or not?
I was interested whether you were or not, because I think this could have fallen either side. I think it's very well written, and I thought that would get you on, but...
It got me off, Ryan.
There you go. It sucked you off, if anything. But... The other side is I think it could have fallen into that superhero shenanigans cosmic bullshit where you're like, what's going on? Who are these? Like,
but it really didn't.
No, but you can see why from my perspective. Like, it was like, those coin games where they like drop. It could have fallen in either side.
And on the did Jamie actually read it scale, I actually did a really like close reading. I read all of the words. I looked at all of the pictures, which I can't honestly say for everything that I've talked about over the past few months.
Guess which ones? Go back and re-listen to the episodes and try and guess. I'll
give you guys a hint. It's the episodes where I do the same things I used to do at uni when I hadn't read the book, which is just kind of have a vague pseudo-intellectual discussion around the topic.
That's every episode.
Look, right?
You have to narrow it down.
That is what I bring to the podcast, Ryan.
You won't believe how little that narrows this down. Anyway, so this issue, going to the comic credits, which I think is very interesting. It was written by one John Byrne.
Yeah.
It was penciled by one John Byrne. It was inked by John Byrne.
Yeah.
And color by Glynis Wein. So,
and it's also starring John Byrne.
It's also starring John Byrne. It's literally that. Directed by John Byrne.
It's that fucking Little Britain sketch where he's like, I'm going to write the theme tune, sing the theme tune.
Yeah, literally. What are you going to do this week? I'll put myself in the comic. How? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry, I've got this.
I did think that meta beginning was going to be something to, entice you in a little bit, because it was not the traditional beginning to a comic.
I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
It did instantly draw me in.
Well, so in terms of instant first impressions, how much do you have to say about the art?
So, this is from the 80s, isn't it?
It is.
It doth not look like the 80s. It seems to look like the 60s.
Exactly my point I was going to make. I think, having a brief glance across stuff as much as I can, I think it's a really interesting topic to start with. It's the 60s art style, but with then more of the 80s, like, character depth and, like, slightly more realistic dialogue compared to the 60s and all that stuff.
It's almost the perfect mix.
Yes, for this style, like, I prefer this to the 60s, because the difference...
Holy smokes, Batman!
Yeah, I was literally going to do a bit of, like, the 60s was like, don't worry, I've reversed the polarity of his ray, and now, his ray gun doesn't work anymore.
I'm raising evil Superman, see?
Whereas this one is like... Might I be responsible for the death of 8 billion lives? Like, that's the difference in tone, but the visuals are very similar.
The interesting thing is that comic books had started to get a bit more graphic, and sort of the violence got turned up a bit in the 80s.
Well, yes. Yeah.
But this has none of that, and all of the maturity that I would associate with a really great third-party comic. So now,
the 80s is a especially interesting time for comics in general, but I think the art is a good way for this to look at specifically, because this came out in 1983.
So early 80s as well.
Yes, but then only like 4 or 5 years later, you had Watchmen, Killing Joke, in Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is probably the closest to this style, but was still, different enough to distinguish itself.
Yeah.
Basically, what I think is the 80s was a very transition time for comic book art, because it was only a few years removed after this that you had some of the biggest releases that would influence the art through then the 90s.
Yeah.
And I think maybe there's an argument that happens every decade, like the late of the decade influence next. But again, this is so similar to 60s.
Yeah.
I don't think there was that much change happening across, in terms of artwork, the 60s and 70s. Dialogue and characterization, that's definitely improved. I think this was leagues from the 60s stuff. And also, Craven's Last Hunt was late 80s.
Yeah.
That was Spider-Man. So that wasn't like a Watchman or Alan Moore doing Batman.
That was mainline Spider-Man.
Exactly. With a really dark story about bloody being buried alive and Craven offing himself at the end. Like, it's that kind of stuff that you think, oh, the concepts are the art was catching up with the concepts by the
And
late
this
80s.
isn't as out there as Craven's Last Hunt.
No,
because that was, like, rhetorically speaking, very out there. They were going for a very defined tone that, I mean, you can go back and listen to the episode if you've not heard it. I thought it was a little bit of a miss, but this is very much played with a straight bat.
Yeah, well, to an extent, because again, all the main stuff is, but then you've got the writer in the comic book himself. So it kind of plays both. It does the straight stuff straight, and it also has the meta stuff, which is not necessarily not serious, but when you're looking at the writer of the comic in the comic itself, inherently that part can't be taken seriously.
No, I think we should probably just take a minute to talk about the art.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because it is desperately pretty.
So John Byrne, I should give a little shout, he was very prominent in the 80s.
Didn't he die recently?
As far as Wikipedia is concerned, he's still alive.
Well, congratulations, John Byrne. I'm sorry.
We know you're listening. Sorry,
I was about to eulogize you.
But what I was going to say is he's very well known in the 80s, most well known for doing the artwork for the 80s period of X-Men, where that was written by Chris Claremont.
Yeah.
And he's actually co-creator of a lot of the characters that came out of that era,
right.
Which, as we know, X-Men 80s is when they were like, shit, new team, Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, Gambit. You know.
I mean, everything we now associate with the X-Men was created in part by this guy.
Yeah, exactly. So he'd already done that artwork, and now was starting his writing part of his career with the Fantastic Four, with like one of Marvel's biggest mainline titles.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real moment, isn't it? This comic book represents a real moment in time for Marvel.
Yeah, and just the 80s in general, as we've already established.
So the artwork itself, it's very much like bread and butter 60s artwork, but then there's moments where it's just so imaginative. I'm thinking specifically of the moment where we see all of the different ways in which different beings perceive Galactus.
Fantastic page. Like, one of my favorites.
What a page,
I'd
man.
get that as a poster. Like, that, I think that's becoming the new barometer of, like, great single bits of artwork.
Would you put it up on your wall?
Yeah,
and that would have a place on my wall. It looks, with Galactus in the middle, and then all of these tiny little panels kind of around this huge splash page, showing all of these well-imagined, well-thought-out Galactuses that could easily have been Galactus. I think what made it so special to me is that any one of those would have been as potent an image as the Galactus that is conjured in the imagination of the human people who see him within the confine of the comic.
Yeah.
And I just think, you know, I mean, the human characters, to my eyes, looked a little lackluster. But human characters always do in this older art style. They're always just kind of broadly attractive looking people defined by hair color. That being said, Reed looked really good.
Well, I think you kind of needed to give him like the best kind of facial expressions and like looks of concern and emotion and that kind of stuff. Everyone else was just kind of like permanently like, oh, I hope Reed's going to be all right. You know, this is crazy. Reed's the one who has to have like the solemn look of internal retrospection.
But there wasn't a moment where I thought the artwork looked bad. And I think it was really well composed. And given that it was quite a stodgy story, it was very much like every panel was at least a quarter a block of text.
Yeah, lots of text.
Lots of big blocks of text, but it's a courtroom drama.
Yeah.
Nothing visually interesting is happening here.
Well, I think when you're first shown like this alien courtroom and bits like that, but then it very quickly like shows you, looks really weird, like appropriately weird for an alien place. The first splash page of the courtroom, I kind of had to look at it for a bit because it looked almost like everything was almost like a bit slanted into a weird angle. But then I was like, I was about to criticize it, but then I went, well, it's an alien ship. Like, this actually invokes the kind of right feeling for that kind of thing. But so it shows you the splash page, and then very quickly it's close-ups with a solid color background a lot of the time, which back then it's a quicker way to kind of do this stuff. But so it uses the splash page to establish, and then once it's established, is then, as I said, solid color backgrounds, walls of text, story, you know?
Yeah.
But I think it all works out, especially the cosmic stuff, like space stuff. I thought there's bits of planets exploding, bits of celestial beings.
It's a Galactus story.
Yeah.
At its core, it's a Galactus story. And I think if you... I only got introduced to Galactus quite recently, but he's come up a lot since.
Why? Because he's going to be in the Fantastic Four First Steps film, which will be out once this episode is released.
So this is why we've been talking about him a lot.
Well, and here's the thing I said earlier. This was just a critically acclaimed story, highly recommended. So I thought, I'll have a look at it. And then single issue, dense text. I thought, well, this would be an interesting one to do. And then as I was reading it, I was like, oh shit, it's got the birth of Galactus in it. I was like, that's the fucking title of the episode, because that's Galactus is everywhere right now.
And I think if you're going to do a Galactus story, you need to get the cosmic stuff right, because that is his whole shtick.
And I think the cosmic stuff, it's the artist, I think, invoking correctly the heavy influence of Jack Kirby from the 60s stuff. Because it's all anyone talks about with Kirby's like 60s Fantastic Four. It's like, oh, the cosmic stuff looked amazing. And I think you couldn't redo that for fear of just coming well under expectation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, he's only, 20, 30 years out here from Jack Kirby.
20 years, I say.
20 years out. Well, when did Jack Kirby stop doing stuff?
I think quite late in. That's...
Or at least when did he stop being the kind of main creative force at Marvel and kind of hand those reins over? What I'm suggesting is that I don't think this would have been very long after that. We need to get a guy who just Googles things for us.
What, a Jamie from the Rogan podcast?
Or, yeah.
But then if we have two Jamies, that's going to be confusing.
Well, he doesn't have to be called Jamie, does he?
But it's the role is the Jamie of the Joe Rogan podcast. Jamie, bring that up. That's the thing. So in 1970 is when Kirby, feeling treated unfairly by Marvel, rightly so, left the company for rival DC.
Right. So by 13 years. Yeah. There's only 13 years between Jack Kirby doing the last things he was going to do for Marvel and this guy writing this. You'd be feeling that legacy quite strongly, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And especially because after that, he went to DC and then did all the New Gods stuff, which is DC Galactus stuff, basically.
Yeah.
So he was still doing that same excellent level of work. I don't think it took off in the mainstream as much as, his Fantastic Four work.
Yeah, but it was never going to.
Yeah. In terms of the color scheme, I had just had this thought. I wanted to get your take. It kind of reminds me of, and I don't know if there's a connection, an obvious connection I'm missing, like this, like a redundant thing to say. It feels very, what's the Andy Warhol-esque? Like it made me think with the Galactus page, especially.
Yeah.
But Warhol, he used this kind of color scheme, like these 60s-esque comics. Was that on purpose?
Yeah. So Andy Warhol's whole thing was pop art. And so he wanted to essentially establish like mechanized art almost. So he was trying to take high art, fine art, into a similar place to comic books. They were being printed, they were being stamped out.
So do you think it's fair to say Jack Kirby influenced Andy Warhol?
I mean, it's so difficult because Andy Warhol was...
When was he most well known doing stuff?
60s, 70s.
So it could have been at that exact time.
They absolutely would have been contemporaries of each other.
Wow.
And you think, when you think of the pop art style, one of the things that is often sort of reproduced in the pop art style are reproductions of 60s and 70s superheroes. Because they lend themselves so well to it. They're brightly coloured. So yeah, I mean, it kind of... I see where you're coming from. I think they are two distinct veins in American art, but they're two distinct veins of American art that were using similar production practices at a similar time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sort of Andy Warhol was very into the idea of printing art and you printing stuff out as opposed to hand drawing it and painting it. He wanted to make reproducible art. He wanted to make art that was bold and wasn't relying on the old-fashioned techniques from before. I'm not an art person.
I thought it'd be one of those things under your purview, as was a jack of all trades, master of none kind of title.
Just like a person who's generally interested in the arts and culture.
To be fair, you knew more than me, so...
I suppose,
And you do normally say the most about comic book art. So
it makes sense. I see where you're coming from. I mean, I think what you're identifying in it to build on it is the fact that it does look like something from the 60s.
Yes, and I think that I think just rings true of how influential 60s comics were.
Hugely
basically the
so.
entire decade of the 70s.
I mean, to be honest with you, the cultural influence of the 60s is the dominant cultural force until the turn of the 21st century for me.
Yeah. 70s was kind of like 60s light.
It was kind of like a more intellectual version of the 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then 80s was like everything's new, everything's bold, everything's spurned by the electronic changes we've had in the decades. Like,
yes, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because we always come up against this when we talk about the 80s on the podcast, because when I think of the 1980s, I think of the 1980s in Britain, not the 1980s in America.
Yeah, I'm definitely more American 80s.
Yeah, and the 80s in Britain and America were very different. For our American listeners, while you guys were yucking it up and doing cocaine and banking, Britain was under the stranglehold of Thatcherism and the Falklands, this lady's not for turning, austerity. The 80s was a really culturally interesting time in Britain, but it was not an affluent time.
Yeah, imagine, for the Americans, living in the state of Vermont, but with Reagan as the person in charge of it, and there's no checks and balances to stop him doing whatever he wants.
Well, I mean, it's like in Britain, we had a similar level of like upheaval and political turmoil as they did in America in the late 60s, but with infinitely less money.
Yeah.
And so, the queues in the dole offices were around the street, and it was the era of like post-punk and ska, a lot of kind of Jamaican influence coming into British pop culture. It was a fucking interesting time to be British, I'm sure. And I love chatting with Gen Xers about being teenagers in the 80s. Because the music was cool, the fashion was cool, they were all skint, but they were fucking, just getting on with it. Like, I like hearing about Britain in the 80s, but it wasn't the neon 80s like it was in America.
No, the American 80s just looked way more fun version with neon lights.
Yeah, it's like cocaine and car phones and
Madonna.
And like, teenagers driving American cars with big V8s in them to school and fucking Letterman jackets. It's like, it just feels cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, speaking of cool, Fantastic Four. It's a good segue.
But no, I think this is really harkening back visually to the comics of the 60s. I think he did a great job.
Yeah, oh yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed the art in between. It felt like I said before I went, great art, story, great art, story.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. No, it was, I mean, the actual story was so dense because it was just an experiment in existentialism. That's what this story is, so existential.
Well, let's get into the story then.
So the story itself.
Well, go on.
Reed Richards is on trial in an alien land for having saved Galactus.
Yeah.
We don't see this. I assume it happens in a previous issue or happens off screen, off page.
Previous issue, yeah.
Yeah. And then what we see is a courtroom drama. Where various witnesses are called. Every witness brings with them a new turn. Some witnesses really support Reed's innocence, and then some challenge it in ways that we weren't expecting. And really it comes down to, it's almost, Byrne's musings on the necessity of death.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah. I mean, that is kind of the ultimate message of it. But starting at the start, I was going to look at the first part to get into is the meta of the narration.
Well, I was going to talk about that separately, but we can talk about it first if you want.
Well, either way.
So we see John Byrne on the phone with one of the editors of Marvel, basically saying that the Fantastic Four haven't told him what their most recent adventure is yet. And so he's worried about meeting his deadline for the following day for the next Fantastic Four story.
And the editor's just like, fucking whatever, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, just make something up. And he's like, well, the Thing doesn't like it when I make them up. And then
this guy's definitely enjoying the AEs.
Yeah.
Is what the editor said.
And well, yeah, because the editor said, "Oh, have you been like inhaling your own pencil shavings?" And it's like, you've been getting high, haven't you?
That was the Comics Code Authority version of, are you smoking crack?
Yeah, you smoking pot. And then one of the Watchers comes and gets him.
Oh, Watu.
Watu,
who I've got a lot of issues with.
So is Watu like one of the Watchers that we meet a lot?
Yeah, he's the one from the Galactus storyline. So,
oh, God, yeah, the one who I cannot interfere. But interferes every single time.
Yeah.
Does nothing but interfere.
I love this one because he's like, I'm going to testify. And Sue Storm's like, but you're the Watch. You can't interfere. It's like, but actually I can in this instance because it's a trial against Galactus and Galactus is a force of nature. So I can you're just making these up as you go along.
Yeah. No. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the only thing that we really ever get told about the Watchers is that they can't intercede. And then the one Watcher that we meet consistently
keeps interfering
at every juncture.
But also then shafts responsibility by being like, I can't interfere at all.
At the pivotal moment where he could actually be fucking useful.
Yeah, and for anyone, if you haven't heard our episode on it or you haven't listened, in the original Galactus story, it literally gets to the point where he's like, Galactus is going to destroy the Earth. I cannot interfere. But what I can do is send the subconscious of Johnny Storm through a wormhole to Galactus' ship, which might make him insane, and then lead him to this secret weapon on his ship and bring it back. Beyond that, my hands are tied.
Yeah.
And it's like, just go get it yourself.
At this point,
what is
rules lawyering?
Legal red tape that's like, I can't set foot on it, but I can guide you there. Absolute bollocks.
And so in this instance, he decides that the way that he can most sort of suitably not interfere is to represent Reed Richards in his trial.
Yeah, and testify on his behalf. And also, I love Reed Richards. He's just like, I had to save him because the Watcher told me that he's Galactus is an integral part of the universe, so he needs to survive. And I love that it all hinges on bloody hope the Watcher was telling you the truth, because he is not consistent in what he says. He's
not consistent or reliable.
You are hinging your surviving this court case on this guy.
Yeah. I also love that they say they have the most accurate judicial system in the world.
Love
and it
this
is
part.
Based on a hanging, cluster of gonads, is the only way I can describe it, of many colours.
A chandelier of flat circle colours.
It's a hanging cluster of technicolored gonads.
Yeah.
And when they all turn white, that means you've had a not guilty verdict.
Because it reads the complex thoughts of everyone in the courtroom.
Including the accused.
Yeah, to determine not guilty.
And Reed Richards takes the ultimate ballsy move of pleading guilty at the first opportunity.
Because, and as the smart man he is, he's just like, I have done what I've been accused of.
And and this is the cut and thrust of it, isn't it? He stands accused of saving Galactus, which has led to the annihilation of Krull.
Yeah, the Skrull home planet.
Yeah, and aren't they just tosspots?
Oh yeah, the Skrull are bad. Well, no. So the Skrull at one point were just bad people. They were an enemy of the Fantastic Four. It's like, the Skrulls, whatever. But some point between this comic and now, the present, they have become a more complex,
Well, we red meat the Skrulls, didn't we?
Exactly, yeah. So they do have a culture of doing things to try and ensure their own survival. But then the complexity comes into where they lost their homeworld because Galactus fucking ate it.
Yeah.
So now they're kind of almost like an intergalactic refugee people.
Yeah.
But they also have these powers of shapeshifting. So naturally they are going to use it to try and facilitate resources and things for themselves and their own race. So they have grown in complexity, as most characters have in comics. But
some haven't.
But at this point still it was the bloody Skrulls, they're at it again.
Yeah. And so essentially what it comes down to is Reed has pled guilty to the crime that they're saying he's committed, and now what needs to be determined is if he is also now guilty for the 7 billion deaths that have occurred since he saved Galactus.
Yeah.
Which to me is the only bit that's flawed, because that would set a legal precedent by which he is now guilty of every death every subsequent Galactus-related death, right?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting, because thinking about it just now, it's that thing of versus if you save someone's life and then they kill someone, are you responsible for that, the person they've killed?
Yeah.
But the reason it's different here is because Galactus is a force of nature, in the sense that it's like, if you save his life, he is 100% going to eat planets. Like, that's what he does. It's the only thing he does.
Yeah.
So it's not like saving someone's life and then that individual use their free will to then commit a murder afterwards. It's saving the life of a hurricane that just roams the land and is inevitably going to go into someone's home or
always
village.
Going to do that.
Exactly. But then it becomes, well, is there a responsibility? Like, if I think what's especially interesting here is they obviously didn't have a law for it.
No.
Because I think from their perspective, they're like, well, we didn't make a law because we didn't think anyone could kill Galactus, let alone save his life.
Yeah.
So I just found that whole aspect, and that even doesn't get mentioned at all. That's just me inferring. But it leaves so much room of like, how does this system work? Like when you think about the law and responsibility and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they gave you enough on the face stuff of things they would discuss in that moment.
And it's interesting because this conversation comes up in the real world where there are things that have obviously been illegal for a long time, which you then find out they're legislating against specifically, and you're like, upskirting. Upskirting is a thing that should obviously be illegal.
Yeah. Did not think that would get mentioned on this podcast ever, but here we are.
No, but it's the most recent corollary I can think of.
A new law had to be created for the modern time.
Yeah, so obviously there was always a way to convict people for upskirting because it's like a form of assault, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a form of assault on a person where you are taking photographs of certain parts of their body they do not want you to photograph without their will using a surreptitious method, right? So there are a bunch of different patchwork of laws that people would try and use to get convictions for people who are caught upskirting, most notably celebrities, let's be honest.
Well, unfortunately, I think it was normal everyday women who were having the bigger issue of it because they had less recourse, whereas a celebrity had more,
they had fewer
social
resources.
Capital to get things done about it.
Whereas now, I think it was over the past couple of years, at least in the UK, they started bringing in specific laws against upskirting.
Yeah.
And so it was a practice that was never really legal because it fell under so many different brackets. But actually, at a certain point, they went, we should probably just specifically legislate against this.
Yeah. The problem was most laws were written at a time where cameras, I think you had to set up on a large tripod and put the curtain over yourself.
Well, because there's two distinct veins in British law. I don't know how it works in America, but there is...
I think all states have their different processes.
But the way it works in the UK is there are laws which are like, there are things which are codified into law. Somebody somewhere, normally Parliament, has specifically written a law, and they're like, this is now a law of the land, you cannot do this. There are other things that are technically illegal that there isn't a law against because it comes into a precedent. And so if a barrister is able to get a judge to convict somebody of something, that then sets a legal precedent that a future barrister can say, well, actually, this judge on this day convicted this person of this thing for these reasons. Ergo, this situation is similar enough that all of these same things apply. So you now have to behave in the same way, Mr. Judge. And the judge will look at it and go, well, yeah, that makes sense. A legal precedent has now been set. And so things can it's called common law. And so things can end up in British law via precedent. It's where the expression common law marriage comes from. Because somebody once argued in a court that because two people had been married for, I think the period is 7 years, they state, because they'd been living together for 7 years, they're now common law married, right? And so in future cases where that same thing came up, it's like, well, using this legal precedent, this meets all the same criteria. This is a common law marriage, so we now have to treat it as such. And it's the same thing that's happening here, isn't it? It's like, well, nobody's ever saved Eternatus before. So it's not a specific law that you have broken, but also, come on, dude.
I love how this podcast managed to link the trial for saving the life of Galactus to upskirting. Again, it makes perfect reasonable
Crimes of equal significance.
I just thought, well, this wasn't a crime as we established.
No, he was innocent.
So you're definitely wrong in saying
A precedent, but this is the thing. If their legal system works anything like ours, a precedent has now been set where saving Eternatus' life is perfectly reasonable.
And yeah, I think with Galactus especially, I think what it comes down to, as we see here, is him being, the big force of nature. But the fact that they had to bring in a special witness testify Odin.
Testimony.
Yeah, testimony from Odin. And also that part as well. Do you notice, second time that the Watcher has sent Johnny Storm on a little mission to do something. He's like, I cannot interfere. Johnny Storm, I need you to, just do it yourself.
The best bit is, Odin was already on his way.
Oh yeah, he was like literally coat on, outside his door, just like, I'm waiting for the lift.
He'd put his best eye patch on.
Yeah, Watcher had already spoke to him. He's like, look, I can't pick you up myself. And I was like, shut up, I know.
The burning human's going to come.
Yeah, the man on fire.
So,
What do you think of is this your first experience of Marvel Odin?
No, because he was in Deadpool's wedding.
Yeah, well, so a bit more of like seeing him interact and stuff.
I've met him in a Thor comic. I'm pretty sure I met him in Immortal Thor.
Yeah, I think that's true, yeah.
I would have seen him in Immortal Thor. Is certainly my first experience of vintage Odin. Bit weird.
Yeah.
The character model's a little bit out there.
What's fun here is, because most of the comics I read are modern comics from the last 10 years or so, but here, what you have is the rest of the Fantastic Four being like, oh my god, Odin. Like, well, we've met Thor, and we'd heard tales, but they're still kind of like registering, like, oh, of course there's an Odin.
Putting two and two together.
Whereas in modern comics, I've seen two, like, almost infinite amount of examples of people being like, Odin, I remember when we met back in the trial of Reed Richards. Like, I've seen that everyone already knows each other because it's been 50 years of this.
Yeah.
But it's in the 80s, we still get these like, oh, the Fantastic Four have never met Odin before. Like, that's interesting.
Yeah, like they've seen Thor kicking around. They haven't met Odin. But in this period of time, though, the Marvel Thor wouldn't have been Thor. It would have been a guy who got the hammer and got the powers of Thor, wouldn't it?
I don't know when that change happened.
But that change did happen, didn't it?
Yeah. At one point, he was Donald Blake, the medical student who required a cane, who stamped the cane, and that turned into Mjolnir, and he became the powers of Thor.
Yeah.
And then that got retconned where it turned out he was Thor, but it was a curse on him, and that Donald Blake never existed or something, I think.
Right, okay.
And in the modern version, turns out once Thor was just Thor all the time, eventually he was like, I wonder what ever happened to that Donald Blake alter ego. Turns out he was trapped in another world and went insane and became a bad guy.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's all
cool.
fun.
So...
Do you remember what John Byrne said when he saw Odin?
No.
He said, holy frijoles.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what frijoles means?
No.
It's Spanish for beans. So basically, it's the Spanish equivalent of, beans.
I've spilt my beans.
Baked beans, look at that.
I'm amazed that baked beans has never been used in that context in British English. Because
we're now going to get it started.
Baked beans. What is going on? No, I don't like it. No,
I'm going to use holy frijoles from now on.
Holy frijoles.
So, Galactus, we get, like I said earlier,
Well, let's talk about Odin's testimony.
Okay, yes.
Because I think Odin's testimony is really interesting because the aliens are aware of Odin.
Yeah, so if this helps or not, the Asgard and the Nine Realms, they're kind of separate to the rest of the universe, but they have like crossover, like they interact, like they can go from these Nine Realms. I think if you think of the Nine Realms as its own universe, so they have the Erd Tree? No, that's Elden Ring.
You're talking about Yggdrasil.
Yes, Yggdrasil. So that's like more of like a cosmic thing which connects these realms together in like our planet and solar systems.
Yeah.
So, but the Asgardians, because they're so advanced, they're like, well, we go to space and see aliens and
Marvel,
stuff.
Marvel sort of Norse stuff fucks with me because my head is so full of like actual pro-Zeta lore.
Yeah.
And so I always, when I start talking about Marvel Norse stuff, I have to remember to like separate out what I know about both of them.
Yeah. Whereas I'm like, if you ever bring up pro-Zeta stuff, I'm like, oh, like the Marvel character, like, and that's my favorite reference.
That's your favorite reference.
To be fair, I've also played the latest God of War games, and they do loads of Norse stuff in there. Way closer to pro-Zeta stuff than Marvel stuff.
Well, that one is set in medieval Scandinavia, isn't it?
Yeah, and Asgard and all the other realms and all that as well.
But so Odin's testimony is essentially that he gives us the origin story to Galactus.
Exactly.
And I thought that was a really cool way that it was presented, because they could have just cut two.
Yeah, I think what's interesting here is because
a lesser writer would have just cut two.
Yeah.
He'd have just cut to it.
The Watcher is basically saying all this stuff that's true now. Like, he is a part of the universe. He's a force. He's an element, basically. Like, and then Odin turns to like, here's why the Watcher's saying all that bollocks.
Yeah, and it turns out that Galactus is essentially a refugee from a planet that died.
Not just a planet.
A universe.
The previous universe.
Yeah.
So his universe was dying as universes, the lifespan of universes theoretically happens that way. His was contracting and becoming a black hole and stuff. And then he managed to survive, him and some other people, but he was the only survivor. Managed to fly a ship into the black hole and might as well do this because there's nothing else to do. And got transformed as part of the Big Bang, the created our universe, or the 616 universe. And because he was a part of it, that's why he's a part of the universal, system. Like, he's part of the rules of physics and everything.
And I thought that backstory was cool. I thought the moment we see him kind of come out of his ship that's almost serving as a cocoon for him was very cool. Yeah,
great artwork for every bit of that.
Yeah.
And it's not even, a lot of comics, they can do like overcomplicated artwork for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This was very much here he is kind of looking weird. Here's his ship. Here is emerging from a ship. Like, it was very kind of like, what's the main thing we need to show? And also, for small panels, great artwork contained within them.
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic.
Really dense.
Visual storytelling. Do you remember Galactus's name? His pre-Galactus name?
Oh, no, I can't.
It's Gallon.
Gallon,
yeah.
Gallon
was once a humble kind of humanoid, basically, and now he's bloody World Eater Galactus.
Yeah, and his testimony, admittedly, really almost Rogers things, because he refers to Reed Richards as being his friend.
Yeah, I love that. I was like... So Galactus turns up, right? Is herald, who I don't know much about. I just remember that one of the other heralds, a human woman, became a herald. I think she was like a love interest of Johnny
Storm.
Silver
Surfer left him?
Yeah, I don't know if she was the next one or she was. He's had a few heralds.
Yeah,
Galactus has got around heralds.
Well, yeah, he has, hasn't he?
And he will eat the hell out of you. And
yeah, he will.
So
no, where do you think he comes in the power ranking?
As far as we know, he doesn't reproduce.
Not everyone who fucks reproduces.
No, but fucking inherently relates to reproduction.
So having
instincts.
some drive for it. So do we think Galactus is not even in the power ranking because he just doesn't fuck?
I would imagine, put it this way, we have no evidence that he fucks. Although, saying that, I think he does have a daughter.
So Galactus fucks?
I'm going to have to look this up because he has a daughter.
This is a worthy tangent, Ryan. This is like a common theme in the podcast. This is what the people come for. They are coming for our... At some point, I think we need to do a special episode where we actually do an S to F tier ranking on all the superheroes and whether or not they fuck.
I think the problem with that is we could do it and we could do it the hell out of that episode, but I think it's also would be finally admitting just how lowbrow this podcast is, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for that.
Just how lowbrow it can be.
Now.
I think
it's not even our rock bottom.
I think sometimes there is a purpose in finding the ridiculous in the sublime.
Oh yeah, and if this podcast is nothing else but ridiculous, we've got that in
but we are hitting the sublimate heights of talking about the existential question of should we try to save people from the natural world that they live in, and then at a certain point we need to find out if the guy who eats worlds also fucks.
So I'm currently reading the backstory of Galacta, who is a character that I think came about from Marvel Rivals.
Right.
Marvel Rivals is basically a looter shooter, I think is it's a
video game.
It's a video game, but it's basically like Overwatch or those kind of games, but with Marvel characters.
Yeah,
incredibly popular. In a scene where you wouldn't think another type of those games could become popular because of how abundant it already is. It's that one that came out of you can play as Venom or Magneto, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is amazing, man!" So she was a character introduced there. According to her backstory, the Galactus of a different universe got a parasite. It developed a parasitic entity that became a daughter named Gally.
Yeah, he doesn't fuck.
Yeah. So that's like a Godzilla asexual reproduction kind of thing.
Yeah, no. Galactus doesn't fuck.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Like, to your point earlier, obviously all fucking is not dependent on actual reproduction.
Yes.
But it's reproduction bits doing stuff. And I think we can...
That's great. Nice. I like that.
That's how I include everyone.
That's how we define fucking.
Yeah.
Reproducing bits doing things.
Yes. All I'm saying is Galactus does not have the fuck bits to do the fucking.
Well, he certainly isn't using them for that end.
No, exactly.
So Galactus turns up.
Yeah.
Refers to Reed Richards as a friend, which is damning evidence of Reed Richards' guilt.
That is like, I'm trying to think of the equivalent. That is like Hitler turning up to the Nuremberg trials and going like, "Oh, you all right, mate?" How's it going? You're like, don't do that.
It is literally like Hitler and Goebbels talking about the camps at the Nuremberg trials, isn't it?
But it's weird because Reed Richards, I don't think he never lets on that he considers Galactus a friend either.
I don't think he does.
No, it's really weird for Galactus to. I guess this is Galactus like, well, you've saved my life, so we're mates now. And Reed's like, oh, I actually don't think of you that way.
And I think this is a bit of a departure of kind of. I think this is the one time where the comic book really departs from the core of these characters, because I think it really nails the core of Reed Richards' character. Comic book.
Doing the right thing, even if it's difficult.
Exactly, yeah. And the stoicism and the intelligence and the sort of emotional intelligence that he brings to this trial. But then for Galactus to refer to somebody as a friend, because one of the things that is charming about Galactus is that whenever we see him, he isn't like, I'm going to ruin the day. He's like, I've come here to eat a planet, for I am the guy who eats planets, and I'm going to eat the planet now. And then if you prevent him from eating the planet, he's like, I'm not going to eat this planet anymore. I'm going to go and eat a different planet, for I am the guy who eats planets.
Yeah, he's kind of, when he gets thwarted in the original Fantastic Four story, the first appearance, he is kind of begrudgingly like, well, you've bested me, so I'm going to have to leave your planet alone. He's not like, drats, you've stopped me from eating, I'll show you. He's just kind of like, I'm a force of nature, you've stopped me, let's call it quits. Like,
yeah, exactly. And so for him to have that baseline emotional attachment to Reed, or at least to express it for whatever reason, I think is a big departure from the character. But I get what they're getting at, because they needed him to say something
incriminating.
Yeah, they needed that twist in the trial, because after Odin's testimony and the Watcher's testimony, it was all going a bit too well.
Yeah, I think what's funny about it is how Reed's kind of thing is like, I did what I'm accused of, but is it a crime? You'll see from these testimonies that I had to save a important part of the universe from dying. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. And then Galactus turns up, it's like, yo, Richards, what up, best friend?
What up, brother? They've got like matching t-shirts on.
He's like, shut up. God.
Shut up, we'll go play skee ball later.
I think what I would have expected and maybe done differently if I had any say of this comic, written by someone who's well above my talent.
Long before you were born.
But what I think I would have done was made it more of like a begrudging respect, or like a kind of like, I have no sentiment to Reed Richards, but even I cannot deny his brilliance, and and he's a good man, like that kind of thing.
And because that is the sentiment of what he's saying is like, Reed Richards is a person who does the right thing even if it's difficult.
Yes.
And so that bit was a really, ultimately I really felt like it was a bit of a betrayal of Galactus's character, but it was a fun twist.
Yeah, it wasn't kind of like, I wasn't in the moment like, Galactus wouldn't do that. I was like, that's so weird.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you had a similar response to it as me. I was
knocked off slightly by like, whoa, like I didn't even think about it. I was like, well, that's weird.
And then ultimately Galactus calls in the universe.
Eternity.
Eternity.
An actual character in the Marvel Universe. Like, who's Eternity? Everything.
But it is just an anthropomorphization of everything, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Everything exists within eternity.
Yeah. And that basically like is the end of the trial.
Yeah. And it's ultimately, I really loved it. I love the introduction of Eternity. I thought it was so funny because there's an interaction Galactus summons Galactus has to combine powers with Watcher, like our powers between us. We can summon Eternity. So they summon Eternity. Eternity turns up somehow within the universe, or is somehow still out it, but is connecting with Pete, wherever. And Eternity goes, "Who summons me?"
Yeah.
And Galactus basically like, "I summoned you for this trial of Reed Richards." And Eternity goes, "Such things are known to me, Galactus."
Yeah.
It's like, you just asked who summoned you. Like, and he's just, like, I've never felt sorry for Galactus before, but that's, when someone's like, "What's up?" It's like, "Oh, this up." It's like, "Yeah, I knew." It's like, stop being a bitch to Galactus.
When you have a kind of mean boss who's a little bit incompetent?
Yeah, that was that.
And, like, they call you into a meeting and they're like, "Why haven't I got the quarterly report?" And you're like, "You told me not to work on the quarterly report because we had this other stuff that you needed me to do." And they're like, "Well, yeah, I remember that."
Yeah.
And we're like, "Well, clearly you fucking didn't."
Galactus is the one person that he has to answer to.
Yeah,
and it's just
the
like,
universe.
Yeah, and just gets that snappy response. He's like, I can't do anything. I'm going to take this out on a planet later.
I'm going to eat so many planets when I get home.
Yeah.
Just
I just thought
binge eat an entire galaxy like it's a bag of fucking Maltesers.
Yeah, it is really weird. Again, we just talked about Galactus being nicer and kinder than we expected. And then for Eternity, the encompassment of everything in the universe, to be a bit bitchy was like, what was... That is like Marvel, not just Marvel, DC. No, actually, no. I think this is kind of uniquely Marvel. DC is quite straight-laced in this kind of stuff. And that's not to say someone will be like, "Well, this panel in this DC comic,
actually, they'll push their glasses up,"
which I do all the time, so I respect it. But generally, vibe-wise, across the board, DC's a bit more straight-laced. Marvel's a bit more, goes a bit weird with it sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, this is so emblematic of Marvel to be like, and Entity's a bit stubborn, bit catty.
Yeah, for no reason as well. And essentially, Entity basically says that, look, Galactus is an important function of the universe. He is a force of nature. Reed Richards was just doing the thing that needed to be done to maintain the natural order of things. And then he gives everybody kind of all of the knowledge of the universe and kind of elevates them to a higher plane so that they can see why Reed Richards made the choice that he did. And the argument is, this mortal already understands this. You all need to be elevated to his plane of intelligence to get where I'm coming from now.
Well, he kind of understands it. He's taking Watcher's word for it. Because the phrase he specifically uses earlier, which I made note of, was, it's like, "I had to do it because of logic and faith." I was like, yeah, faith in that guy. Like the weird, big-headed guy who keeps being very inconsistent about what he can and can't do.
Yeah.
That is not a person I would take the word of to a trial,
Certainly not a trial where I'm being accused of killing 7 billion people.
The Watcher is the most unreliable witness, ironically, that you could bring to a trial.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Even more unreliable than the guy who eats fucking planets. Because bear in mind, right?
He does what he says and he says what he does.
But this is, I think the interesting, and I suppose something that struck me, and this is really funny, is imagine if you were at a trial for being an accomplice to murder, and then somebody goes, "My star witness is the guy who killed all of those people."
Yeah.
And you go, "Oh, fuck, I'm definitely going to prison, aren't I?"
Well, but what was your original key star witness? The Watcher. Oh, what does he do? He cannot interfere. He's literally interfering in the corner right now. Like, he just teleported Johnny Storm away. Like, what is that if not interference?
He's summoning gods.
I love this era. The 80s is like the perfect balance. 80s comics, perfect balance of like wacky, but really good writing and story as well.
Yeah, because all of these things that we've just talked about, like the inconsistencies and the twists and turns that this story takes, do not detract from the fact that it is well written and it is just a whole lot of fun.
I think for the main thing is, for all the inconsistencies, it's still just a world that I'm invested in and want to see what happens next.
Yes.
The fact that, again, all these jokes about the Watcher and being, interfering and stuff, but it's not about him, it's not hinging on him. Like, he's a really interesting side character for all this stuff I've attached to him, but it's still about Reed Richards and morality and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it just blends everything so well. And to speak to that, the end is then kind of the beginning. John Byrne gets returned to his office by the Watcher. And he's like, "I just looked into the eye of the universe. I but I've forgotten it now. And Watch is like, well, yes, no one could contain the knowledge.
Yeah,
so.
He's like, you better get your story down quickly before you forget everything.
And you know what's so funny as well? This theoretically could have all happened. Like,
Go on.
the big part of the meta-ness of it, the Fantastic Four know John Byrne. They know that there's another universe that they're a comic in. To them, it's just an alternate universe. Theoretically, that universe...
Is it an alternate universe, or is he just like a journalist who tells their stories?
Well, what's the difference? Because it's a different universe to theirs. The alternate just means like one of different where.
Well, no, I thought he existed in universe.
I don't. Well, no. So no, I don't think. I don't think
he calls people in their office on the phone, Ryan.
Yeah, but I think that's him just like, oh, the Fantastic Four haven't, and the other's like, yeah, all right, whatever. I mean, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby went to the Fantastic Four's wedding. Like, I think that's part of that kind of like the Watcher going in between universes.
Stan Lee liked to put himself into the Marvel Universe.
And he put Jack Kirby in, so can't deny that.
Well, actually, Jack Kirby
drew them in.
Yeah. Like, let's be frank over what the division of labor was there. Jack Kirby did that.
It's like, wouldn't it be cool if I was in the wedding? And Kirby's like, well, both of us. And fine.
I've already done it. We're both already there. But no, he calls their office. So the implication here is that
he has an interdimensional telephone.
No, fuck off, right? Don't start retconning bollocks into this.
All I'm saying is these could all exist on the same universe. We could exist in the same universe as the Fantastic Four, is what I'm saying. And Galactus.
I really wouldn't enjoy that.
I wouldn't want to go there.
No.
Just knowing that it's there is nice. Like neighbors that you never visit, you know? but there's Fantastic Four and Galactus and all that stuff. What I'm saying is it could be real.
Which of the Fantastic Four would you most like to like get a beer with?
The Thing, hands down.
Yeah, me too.
You know what? Top Shagger contender, Johnny Storm. He's dating models and stuff. Like, he's a playboy. He's like what Bruce Wayne pretends to be, but actually is and is a superhero at the same time.
Yeah, no, Johnny Storm. I don't like him as much, though.
No, he is like that kind of, but he's the kind of terminally the character that is pre-learning a lesson and becoming better.
Yes.
But because of the status quo of the Fantastic Four, he's always slips back to that.
He's Bucky Barnes if they hadn't let him grow.
Yeah. I think he's a lot better in the sense that when he becomes an uncle, he's more of like
Yeah, because I didn't realise he was Reed Richards' wife, brother. Yeah,
Johnny Storm and Sue Storm, the Storms. And then you got Reed Richards and you got Ben Grimm, the Thing. So the way it works is
so
Reed and Sue are married or together or whatever. Johnny is Sue's brother and the Thing is Reed's best friend.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how they're kind of the first modern family. Because how many families hang out with their uncle by blood and uncle non-blood in like the same roof, yeah?
Oh, I never clocked that.
Yeah.
I only clocked it in this issue because Sue and Johnny talk about it.
Did you think Johnny was just some guy?
Yeah, I just thought he was some kid that they'd like adopted.
To be fair, he does look quite young compared to... I think Sue was always like looked older because she had, especially in the 60s, she had like the big 60s hair that like mums had at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. I don't know the 60s well enough. But yeah, that's the dynamic of the Fantastic Four. I think this was really good to get into the whole Galactus thing because Galactus, I mean, we're going on topic because he's about to kind of have his debut in the MCU specifically.
He's coming into the Fantastic Four, right?
Yes. Fantastic Four's first steps, he's the antagonist. They're doing the Galactus comes to Earth story, like with Silver Surfer and all that. What's interesting is he technically has had a movie appearance before.
Oh.
But so there were some Fantastic Four films in the noughties, definitely noughties.
The ones with Chris Evans.
Yes, Chris Evans, Human Torch, I can't remember the other actors, Jessica Alba as Invisible Woman. But what's interesting is when they were first kind of revealed, it was the second one of the two films. Yeah. They were like, we're doing Fantastic Four, Rise of Silver Surfer, get hyped. And everyone's like, oh my God, if they're doing Silver Surfer, they must be doing Galactus.
They're going to have to.
We're going to get Galactus. And this world was not that crazy a camp, like not nearly as much as the MCU is nowadays. But people are like, oh my God, we're getting a Galactus in this universe. Like, that's crazy. And then the trailers came out. Still not showing Galactus. They're oh my God, this is going to be so good. Like, they're keeping him from the trailers. Like, this is going to be good. And then the film came out, and Silver Surfer comes on. I'm Herald of Galactus. Galactus coming to eat the world. People in the cinema are like, oh my God, he's coming. And then at the end, it turns out he was a cloud.
Oh.
He was a big old cloud that was just almost enveloped Earth and then got turned into dust right at the end.
Oh, that's so piss poor.
Yeah, and the one thing they did was in the cloud, there was like a vague, very faint outline of his head in the cloud.
Oh, that's... So we might actually get proper movie Galactus.
We've seen the back of his head. We are getting full-on Galactus. But when people saw that cloud and everything, I just imagined, like, I was a kid at the time, but imagine like everyone in the cinemas being like, what the hell is that? Just so disheartened by the whole thing.
Ruined by it.
Yeah. But I thought it was just funny because, again, we're getting him now. He's walking through the streets. He's purple. He's played by a British guy who I can't remember the name of. He was in the original Office. I can't remember his name.
Stephen Merchant.
Not Stephen.
How good would that be?
All right, I'm just here to eat your planet.
Or
don't
in
mind
fairness,
me.
Ricky Gervais would be amazing as like a blank face Galactus.
I think Stephen Merchant is very tall though, so that works in his favor.
Well, no, because movie
like
magic.
6'7".
Yeah, but you don't actually need to be tall to play Galactus.
No, but he looks tall, so that's what helps. I think it's Ralph Ineson, I think his name is.
Ralph Ineson, I like this guy.
He's got the voice. That was the main reason they got him, was the voice. He's still going to be incorporated in the CGI, like it's still going to look a little bit like him, but the voice was the main thing that they got him for.
Yeah, he's good. I'm trying to remember what I reckon. He's in the Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah. Probably, I think it's like a military officer or something, I think.
Yeah, I mean he's a bit actor and he tends to have smaller roles, but he's cool. I like him.
Character actor.
Actor is bit actor is quite diminutive, isn't it?
Exactly,
no, he's a good character actor.
Yeah, but yeah, looking forward to it. Hopefully seeing it this weekend, so I'll be able to. I say this weekend. Hopefully, I'll have seen it by the time this episode comes out.
Yeah,
and then I'll report on it, next episode and tell you if you should bother seeing it, even though you won't.
So, I think that's everything for today, isn't it?
Shall we enter the alternate reality of the fan mail
dimension?
This
is what I was going to say. So we got some fan mail today that was just so lovely. I wanted to read at least part of it out. So we got some fan mail from William, who is also a podcaster, who has the Wait At podcast that I had a little listen to. It was enjoyable. You should have a look at it on YouTube. I think we found it.
Yes, check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, it's like a one guy kind of audio essay style podcast. It was
a lot
enjoyable.
Of similar topics to what we talk about.
Yeah, similar to us. He said, "Hello, Ryan and Jamie. I love you guys' show and just wanted to send you a bit of fan mail to keep up the good work. I know how hard it can be as a smaller creator. Your show is hilarious."
Small creator?
I know, right? We're in the big leagues.
If you search Comic Literate Podcast, I think we have one image that comes up that's our image, so very small.
But they said that the show's hilarious and insightful, which is really lovely. And also, the reason I wanted to read this one out is because they wrote about Mouse in college, English degree for the win, which basically means we're like brothers.
Of course, you had to read the one from the bloody the fellow English nerd.
Yeah, I mean, us English graduates have to stick together because, let's face it,
no one else will take you.
No one else will have us. But no, thank you for the kind words. Keep up the good work on the podcast. And I think the one last bit he said is, if you decide to check out Wait At, really don't have to. I'm not being cheeky for free promo. Well, you fucking got some. I
think that was cheeky, but we like that.
Yeah, I respect that.
Yeah.
I hope the British slander comes off as the friendly ribbing I mean it to be from across the pond. And to be quite frank, mate, I don't think you can say anything worse on your podcast than I have about the Americans on this one. Because he's like 10, 11 episodes in, right? So he's way back a few years ago. Yeah. I didn't get heavy on the America hate until a little bit in, did I?
Yeah, so he's in for a real vibe shift.
He's in for a real surprise when he finds out what Jamie says about the Americans.
And whenever you're hearing this, send us another email when you eventually get to this episode, and then we'll do that on the then current episode, and we'll do like a back and forth kind of thing, like an echo or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should probably send him an email back.
Yeah, just an automatic response like, thanks.
Do we have automated responses on?
I'll have a look on I don't know.
You should definitely turn automated responses on.
Yeah, thanks, I like that. Or something. Good idea.
You massive cunt.
Don't think that's part of the vernacular in the Gmail email system.
Oh, it will be.
Well, you can put it in probably.
We can probably find, with our connections that we have at Google, because we're big time YouTubers, I feel like we can
If you use the word enough, it probably just includes it. Anyway,
Yeah, this is
this person
it.
says cunt a lot. We'll,
This
probably put
guy's
that in.
really insistent that the word cunt gets through our firewall.
And if anyone else does want to write in and tell us how great we are, like if you absolutely insist on doing that, then comiclitter@gmail.com.
Well, I mean, you might get it read out. We sometimes read them out.
I just like looking at them. Just no man.
My favourite, and again, we don't get this as much anymore, and I'd like it to become a thing, is the really mean comments on the YouTube videos.
Oh, we did have a fun comment that I did spot the other day, and I thank you for reminding me because I can bring it up now. It was on the last episode that came out. I
don't remember what the last one was, mate.
It was on the Superman weirdest Superman stories one.
Yeah.
And it was just a comment from someone named Tall Dice Thrower who said, Superman number 125 unironically made me gay.
That's great.
Those rainbow beams, they'll get you. Gotta watch out.
Fantastic. Gold on the podcast.
What a line to end on.
What a line to end on. So thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you on the next one.
And here's the recording. And thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to get notified of our future episodes as well. And if you're feeling particularly generous, then please leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you're using. If you'd like to get in contact with us, then send an email to comiclitter@gmail.com. You can also watch videos by me on the Comic Stand YouTube page, which is linked in the description. Thank you, goodbye.